Welcome, everyone. I'm Doreen, and on behalf of ConvergeOne, thank you for joining us. We'll begin today's webinar after a few brief announcements. You'll notice in your webinar console there are several icons. If technical support is needed during the session, please click the yellow question mark icon. The blue icon, shown as a projector, will open and close the slide. The Q&A icon for questions. We will have time for Q&A at the end of the session, so please send in your questions at any time. We'd love to hear from you. The person icon will show and hide the speaker bio for today's presenter. All phones will be muted during the webinar, which is being recorded for on-demand playback. You will receive a follow-up email with the playback link. With that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to ConvergeOne Senior Director of Cloud Strategy, Erik Carlsen. Erik?
Hey, Doreen, thank you all very much, and thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day to have this conversation. This is me, right? This is my contact information, my email, as well as my direct dial. We'll kind of show you a little bit of how to connect with ConvergeOne if you haven't already, but just know that ConvergeOne really starts with a in-the-field, highly accountable, do-right ethos and methodology, and probably the best way to do that is to make ourselves available and accessible. Right, everyone from our president and executive sales leadership right down on through the field. So here's all my contact information. If you have any questions after today's call, please do not hesitate to reach out. I think this is a pretty timely webinar, as you're going to see, because what has happened to us over the last number of years is that the cloud is nothing new. I think that's probably the healthiest thing that we're going to talk about, is that today's conversation is not about, the virtues or, frankly, does the cloud, quote unquote, work, right? But instead, it really kind of comes to helping our clients articulate the business conversation that needs to happen with these changes and shifts in direction and strategic vision that sometimes is, thrust upon us, and, a lot of times really is being championed by us. So here are really the three things that we're going to cover in today's conversation. Is the theme collectively is going to be, how can you utilize your existing budgets to get the transformation of your business that you need today, right? We'll talk a little bit about this. All the technologies that we're driving, all these customer-facing technologies, business outcomes is kind of the word of the day, right? Everyone's looking for outcomes-based solutions, but they need to make financial sense. And unless you can speak the language of that with your executive leadership team and your peer group, it's really hard to get deals and new solutions and environments approved within your four walls, kind of take on that new corporate direction that you envision for the group. Part of what I'm going to do also today is kind of show you a little bit about how ConvergeOne has uniquely positioned ourselves in the marketplace to do what I'm going to show you. Everything I'm going to show you today is wildly above board. There's nothing incredibly fancy here, but you do have to have some pretty deep pockets to pull off what I'm going to show you. And the traditional VARs, the people who are claiming that they're systems integrators aren't built like ConvergeOne is built, and they're not designed to do what I'm going to show you today. And then lastly, I think probably the most important thing is, how quickly can you determine if this is something that you should pursue or not pursue? I think we all need to be respectful of each other, that we're all running our day jobs, and then to evaluate new technologies and new solutions and new ideas is critical to the importance of leading our team forward. But it's also another demand on our time. So unless we can make these business arguments quickly and with the right framework, it's not useful to anyone here. So if you're new to ConvergeOne, we have, I can see the attendee list here. We have well over 200 folks on this call today, and a number of the names and logos I recognize. Frankly, anyone would recognize. These are some of the largest companies in the country. But there are also probably in that list a number of prospects as well, too, or clients who haven't started working with ConvergeOne yet. This is the only thing I'm going to do when talking about ConvergeOne today. Just going to highlight how we bring our skill sets together to solve our clients' business issues and needs. One thing that you're going to know about ConvergeOne is that we aren't necessarily the world's greatest marketing engine, right? We are a team of engineers. We are doers, right? We don't talk a great game. That's not our business. We're not out there, beating our chest about what could be, or instead we are a company of engineers and of architects and solution delivery experts, really designed on guaranteeing the outcomes. So that is all our people. Our focus is also really dialed in. You think about the IT business space, it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Where we play is very specific. And, like you've probably heard from a lot of other companies, we only choose to play in places where we are a top-tier solution provider. And I can tell you that in collaboration, customer experience, there is no one larger than us in North America, right? Probably not also the most glamorous area of technology, if there is one. But in what we do in that space, my goodness, do we own that space. We also have a phenomenal track record in data center, enterprise networking, especially security. What we've done in security to enhance and to ensure our client solutions is market leading. And so I'll save that for another conversation, because I can really geek out on those topics because I'm so passionate about them, but also because we have a good story to tell, right? There is, hopefully kind of what you're going to hear today is there's no make-believe. We only are going to talk about what we can do, because that's really what you care about, right? You don't care about the next iteration. You are running an active business today. So that's what we're going to talk about. You see our portfolio. One of the things that you're going to notice about ConvergeOne is that we are completely vendor agnostic. Everything we'll talk about today is vendor agnostic. So nothing that we're going to go through today is position for a certain technology. This is us bringing solutions across all of our offerings, all of our portfolios. So if you're curious about ConvergeOne, you want to learn more about ConvergeOne, I would love to tell you the whole story, but from a high level, just know how committed we are. We're engineers, not marketing. We have a dedicated focus, and we're going to come at that focus with a real open mind to leading and solving the challenges that you're looking at, okay? One of the reasons I'm doing this presentation is because I have a really unique role at ConvergeOne. So I get to sit over all of our cloud offerings. I get to sit over all of our managed services offerings. I'm also kind of outside the product matrix as well. So I do get to see what the vast majority of our customers are doing, and my job is to meet with our clients' executives. We have a customer summit coming up here at the end of March where we're taking our top 30 customers on a special retreat where it's really for them to tell us the direction of the market, us the direction of the business. And so when you're in these conversations, you start hearing these themes, right? And so what I'm seeing with the cloud is really it's an executive request around risk mitigation, cost containment, right-sizing, future-proofing the business that's being delivered through a new consumption model, okay? And that's what we're going to talk about on today's call is, how do we get this executive request to match up with better IT alignments, really meaning IT alignment is probably just code for I want to pay for what I use when I'm using it, right? I think that's probably a pretty common theme. So how can we use your existing budgeting, your planning, your cost and capital and human resource allocations in order to delight your end users? Because that's really the job we're in. If you think about our roles in running the IT operations for our companies, none of our companies are, in the business of what we do, right? Meaning I'm speaking of the collective, like you and me together, right? Kind of making sure that the company's collaboration systems works, making sure that we can spin up a Microsoft Teams meeting or a WebEx or, making sure that the organization is properly routing traffic across the network in order to ensure capacity. And, that is never our company's business. Now, it's critical to how our company shows up and make sure that there's a place for us to engage and compete on the terms we want to compete on. But it really kind of comes to balancing this delighting of end users. So the challenge I think that a lot of us are faced with today is kind of this idea of how do we get to a smarter path to your outcomes. Like I said, ConvergeOne is not a marketing firm, right? We're not going to tell you, all the greatest things in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. We're going to represent those, and we're going to deliver them. So just as to give you some context to what we're talking about here, when you approach ConvergeOne and say, hey, ConvergeOne, I'm struggling. I'm thinking about this new challenge. Our data center's closing. We need to make this transition. We look at this as kind of our roadmap. I want to show you our methodology for how we do this. It really starts, if you read this like a clock, right? It really starts right at 12 o'clock there with client experience. Our focus is to understand and rapidly design and deploy the solutions that your teams are requiring based upon their end users and your end user requirements, right? Because that's really who is managing your KPIs and is really who is giving your litmus test for success. So our job is to make you look like a hero in understanding and then probably, frankly, more important, delivering on those promises. So how do we do this? Right now we're going to move over to 3 o'clock on this clock here to leverage investments. What ConvergeOne is not in the business of is, quarterly numbers or pushing out product for product's sake, right? Our idea is to get you to the outcomes you want in the most intelligent and the most cost-effective way possible. And a lot of times that means leveraging your existing investments. So again, we're not technology agnostic, and our job is to stand in between you and the manufacturer. Right? You should hold us accountable to your outcomes, us accountable to your performance. And so when our engineers come into your environment to look at these cloud environments or these managed opportunities that we're trying to take on and run on your behalf, we really should start with I think you guys are doing good. Let's understand what we can still utilize, but also let's understand what we need to change in order to make this transition happen, which leads to our number one focus, which is mitigating your risk, right? I don't think anyone ever buys things because they know they're going to fail, but things go bump in the night. And ConvergeOne's job as a group of engineers is to mitigate your risk, to make sure that when you go to your executive leadership team and you ask for this change, or they are frankly demanding this move to the cloud, that you are their champion to say, hey boss, we got this. We understand the challenges that lie ahead, and we have a plan to mitigate that risk, right? ConvergeOne's your partner in doing so. None of this makes sense unless we optimize the cost of these projects, right? I mean, no one has, unlimited pockets, right? We work with some of the largest companies in the world, and they obviously also have, budget and dollar constraints, which is what we're going to talk about today, which leads us back to this idea of ensuring that what we're doing is fast and smart to give you the competitive advantage that you want. And how we do that is we organize ourselves around this waves methodology, right? When we are talking to you about your environments, we want to roll up our sleeves. We have a 2-hour action-based prescriptive workshop that we go through to understand that a client experience you're looking for, to uncover those assets and those investments you currently have. And so I'm not going to go into the full methodology here, but I'm setting up the story to know that what we present next is sound, right? Because while I'm going to show you how we're going to be able to make these solutions operate for your cloud and your budgets well, just because something is, I'm not going to say cheap, right? Because that's not, you're going to see that's not the case. But the cheapest path can never be the right path, right? Because if there were, right, the market would correct that, and then we'd all get there. So just know this is how we're coming forward and how we're thinking about approaching your environment. So let's assume that we've done this. So for you new clients, this is something that you'll get to go on this journey. For your existing clients, you may have already been there, but now is the time for really solving these challenges that you have. So I just kind of laid out everything we have here. So here's the common situation we find our clients in. There's an upcoming maintenance renewal. And that's really a key trigger that your executive leadership team is going to look to for asking the question of why is this still on premise, right? Because while it's working in the background and no one has to write a check and everything is going along just hunky-dory, right? It doesn't come on people's radars. It's when there's a maintenance renewal that our executive leaders are saying to us, why am I paying $500,000 a year for an 800 number, right? What am I getting? Kind of explain this to me. The other thing that you're going to find is that these maintenance renewals were planned for in 2018 for your 2019 budget. In 2019, your 2020 budget was planned. And I kind of go back to this 2018 timeframe because that's really how a lot of our budgets end up coming to be. They're legacy budgets that are all kind of predicated upon previous decisions. And so if you haven't made this change yet, or 2020 is the year, I think a lot of our maintenance budgets have been in place probably since 2018, or if you were on a 3-year maintenance renewal, probably even back to 2017. So now you have this allocated pool of dollars that are waiting to be spent on improving your environment. But the new ask is we want to go to the cloud. Okay? So whoopsie-daisy. So the challenge is this, and our idea is really simple. Let's use this exact budget of maintenance dollars that you have as the seed money to start your cloud project. Okay? Let's use this budget to accelerate your transformation to the cloud. Therefore, you're not going to have to go back to your finance teams and ask for more money, talk about this cost change in order to meet customer requirements. We're going to use the dollars that you already have allocated to start delivering on these promises of the cloud that you have. So how do we do this, right? If this is a simple idea, then we should make it simple. I'm going to show you this in words, and then next I'm going to show you it in pictures, because this is how I want to really kind of package this together. So here's what my team is going to do. And this is where ConvergeOne is uniquely positioned, and we've kind of outfoxed the market in order to do this. What we're going to do is we're going to package up the entire cost of moving you into the cloud solution of your choice. Okay? That's never a small amount of money. If you guys have looked at these things, you're going to know the promise on the brochure is $20 a user a month after you spend, $500,000 implementing the change, right? So we're not going to do that. We're going to bundle this whole thing together, and we're going to match your first year's cash outlay to the budget dollars that you already have. Then, in years 2, 3, 4, and 5, right, kind of whatever that rest of that term looks like, we're going to progressively ramp up your payments in order to make up for that kind of the quote unquote, the underpayment in year 1. ConvergeOne's okay with that because we're not interested in the short-term quarter, right? We're interested in your long-term success. Other thing you're going to find out when you look at our cloud offerings is that we're not just giving you a subscription software license. All of our cloud offers are SLA backed, right? We are actually doing the full work, the full promise of the cloud. We're actually delivering. So I'll also save that for another webinar. This is about the economics. So this is our simple idea. I want to use your maintenance dollars that you already have seeded to start the project. Let's look at this in pictures, okay? So simple idea again, up top, let's use your dollars to seed this over. Simple idea part 2, I have your already allocated dollars. You kind of see this budget I have laid out down here, and we're going to progressively step that up. So the picture, as it's currently represented, shows what your current maintenance agreement looks like, right? It's some dollars this year. It's going to increase by, 5 to 20% next year, and 5 to 20% the year after that, and beyond 2022 is probably too far out to predict. But if you're just maintaining that existing environment, this is what it's going to look like. So what happens from here is the promise of the environment and the promise of the cloud kind of has this, hey, pay-as-you-use mentality, right? As the organization grows, we're going to grow with you. If you're familiar with, Microsoft offerings or Workday offerings, there are a lot of COLA terms built into these agreements, which is a cost of living adjustments. And so, unless your organization is shrinking in size, the cost of the cloud is going to, always go up and to the right, right? But these are always growing and expanding environments. So how are we thinking about this? This is my challenge I have with the cloud. They're going to promise this idea, that kind of the wiggly line of pay-per-use consumption, but in order to get that, you have to pay this one-time implementation fee. This is your budget killer, right? This is what is going to take your maintenance dollars and make going into the quote-unquote cloud financially difficult. I'll put it kindly, right? Commonly financially impossible. And then these projects get put off for a year, and then you have to go through the budget cycle again and try to get all this cost, allocated to your environment. I think this is really, really, really difficult for you as business users to drive. So what we're seeing instead is we're going to drop those one-time budget killer costs away, and instead we're going to step, just like I said, see that red line? It's going to be exactly what your 2019-2020 budget looks like. In the next year, it's going to step up a little more. Year after that, a little bit more, and kind of progressively go into the future and kind of walk up. There will be no one-time cost because instead we're going to lay down that one-time implementation fee, not charge it up front, right, but spread it out over the term. Great idea. Your organization gets to hold on to their cash, right? Use that one-time implementation fee over the term of an environment that's assured to work and assured to run. You're also able to have perfect predictability for your finance executives to see how this rolls out and lays out over time. So this is also going to be a huge win for your finance group, who now can budget 2, 3, 4, 5 years into the future, because you've given them a perfectly prescriptive model to make these changes coming. So if you're looking at a cloud deal today, if you're looking at kind of taking an on-premise environment and wanting to move to the flexible capacity, right, that the cloud promises, this is your ticket, because this is going to ensure financially that you don't have to overextend yourself. It's a pay-per-use model, and no one on the finance side is going to, lose their cool when comes, middle of the year, and you're asking for 3 times your budget dollars in order to implement and transform to a new technology solution. So next step now kind of comes to understanding, hey, the economics make sense. Is this a good fit for us? So the idea is that we want to come alongside to leverage your budget payment plan that you currently have for maintenance into, probably most simply, our C1CX public cloud, right? We have a number of phenomenal public cloud offers, Avaya, Cisco, Microsoft, Genesys, RingCentral Base. I mean, we again, kind of the brochure for the vendor agnostic approach to how we come to the market. And our idea is to come alongside you, understand what your budget dollars are. And here's kind of that first bullet under number 1. I think it's really important. The other thing that we can look at is, just because you're going to the cloud, it doesn't mean that it has to be only an operating expense or only a capital expense. We can also do this model to make sure that your organizations get the accounting treatment that you want. Now, for most of us, we are just given budget dollars, right? But if you want to kind of help connect to your business objectives, if your organization talks a lot about EBITDA, they're going to want this to be a capital project. That means, organizations that are owned by private equity firms, that's a big driver for them, is they want more EBITDA, so therefore they want more capital expense. So we can provide that. If you work for a utility, utilities are notoriously looking for capital expenses. Hospitals, the same thing. And so while the cash is going to slowly be paid over time, because you want this pay for performance relationship and you want the ConvergeOne accountability, right? We can still achieve your finance group's operating expense or capital budget desire, however they want to do this. All we need to do to determine quickly if this is a good business fit for you is understand your user population. That's how this starts. The tricky thing with customer maintenance agreements commonly is that the maintenance agreements are based on something other than user count. They're based on ports, they're based on, server hours, they're based on, a variety of different things. Especially in the data center and enterprise networking space, nothing is based on a per person. It's all per utilization, right? So what we're looking for here is just understanding if you can tell us how many people are in your population, look at our predefined bundles to determine, does this client just need the essentials, right? They just need a phone on the desk or a soft phone and they just need to be dial out, or are they kind of on the road salespeople, right? They need mobility added to their plan. Just tell us what numbers and what categories you want, and then we can create for you, in a matter of, frankly, guys, minutes, right? The economic story to show your executive leadership team, hey, boss, I can move to ConvergeOne's cloud for the exact same cash that we're going to spend today, and then here's how it's going to step up over time. An incredibly fast and accurate way to confirm with your finance peers if this is a project that they want to take on. So once that's been done, and we have the thumbs up and the green lights to kind of weigh whether we're going to do just this simple maintenance agreement, if you kind of think about it, it's a complete apples and oranges, right? I mean, you get the full ConvergeOne cloud experience, right? C1CX, which is new software, new technology, fully implemented pro services engagement, ongoing ITIL support and managed services, OnGuard, Alert Logic. The amount of things that we bring to that dance is phenomenal versus just another year of paying for an 800 number, right? So the business value that you can bring to your organization absolutely, crushes the idea of paying just another 12 months in maintenance. So if we can make that make sense for you, I think that you are in a great spot with your leadership team to lead them forward without asking for new budget dollars. So kind of where do we go from here? So a lot of you already have ConvergeOne account managers, which is phenomenal. And so you can, if this is interesting to you, we can set up some time for us to get this rolling and dialed in here. For those of you who don't, by virtue of being on this webinar, I'm sure we'll be reaching out to you, or you can, please reach out to me directly, and I'll definitely get you routed to the A team, so you are given the opportunity to view this for yourself as well. Once we have that, what we like to do is to kick off an executive sponsor meeting. One of the big things I found in this transition to the cloud is that all of our clients are in some phase of doing this, right? No one's questioning whether to cloud or not cloud. The terrifying thing is this going to work? ConvergeOne understands this. ConvergeOne's also massively committed to customer satisfaction. If you haven't heard, we have our, we are incredibly proud of our 72 Net Promoter Score, which really showcases just how outstanding our commitment to delivering on the value you want is. And that really starts with making sure that our clients have good executive contacts and good executive access. You will not be lost here at ConvergeOne as a customer. You are not going to be treated as the little fish in a big pond, right? So we really want to get this kicked off correct, make sure that you are sponsored and understand how we're going to be delivering these outcomes for you exactly as you want them. With that happening, from there, that waves assessment I showed earlier, we can begin that process to make sure that the cloud that we are positioning and picturing for you is exactly what you want and tailored. Coming out of that, we can look at doing, kind of return on investment or total cost of ownership projections. We can evaluate and tweak, kind of your white glove experience as we take you through this transformation, because, just sending you or, drop shipping you phones, for example, and sending you, licenses and ports for you to implement your own isn't gratifying for us. Again, we're engineers. We want to roll up our sleeves. We want to begin our commitment to performance. And that's really where we want to go from here. So that was what I wanted to cover today. I was told because this is a finance conversation heavily that we need to make it quick because, these can get boring, right? But I hope I was incredibly clear in kind of showing and articulating for you just how we're able to take your existing budget today, quickly identify based upon your user counts, and also kind of identifying which of the public cloud user groups are the right fit for you. We can roll out and we can start delivering you the promises that your field and your end users are asking for without having to go and grovel to finance for more in new budget dollars, which may or may not be coming. So with that, we're going to kind of open this up for questions. I set up 3 questions that I commonly get when doing a presentation like this. And so I can walk through these, and then Doreen, if you see any other questions happening, I think you already have 2 questions in the Q&A. Let me see if I know how to do this, Doreen.
We do. Yep, we do have 2 questions. Yep.
All right, perfect. Give me a second here. Guys, I'm learning on the fly here. This is good. All right, so the first question is, we've been paying the same cost annually for maintenance for the last 5 to 6 years and don't see this going up in the next few years. We're small, or we'll call it a school of sorts that really won't increase in our devices and service. How would this plan look for us? This is an amazing question. So I want to thank the asker of it. I'm not going to call them out because I'm not sure if they want to be known or not known. But you're really describing the challenge of the cloud, I would say. The cloud is designed, the brochure of the cloud is designed to make sure that you have the ability to scale and grow, right? It's all about scale and growth. What you've kind of outlined here in your question is that we have a really good community. It's a fixed size community, but we're not looking for scale and growth, okay? So as you think about this for your environment, what I think is amazing about what I laid out for this program for you is that as that population is flatlined or it's kind of a fixed population, this allows you to consume the new technology platform, get new, better tools and skills, right, with the latest and greatest of software, the things do, expire and retire, while not having to shock the university with a big one-time capital outlay. But for you, I think this program would look incredibly attractive because you're able to make the technology change without having to disrupt the rest of the IT spend or the rest of the IT ask for new and more budget dollars. So kind of summarize the question. How does this work in an organization that's not experiencing growth or doesn't plan to experience growth? This is going to eliminate that one-time transition cost, that one-time hurdle cost, and to actually give you the same flatline, predictable annual budget experience that you want and are looking for. So I hope I answered your question. If you want to ask another one or follow up on this, I'd be glad to do so. Next question. Understanding that we'd be using 2 to 4 years to pay for the lesser of 1 year cost, right? So the question is, knowing that because the first year is paying quote unquote less than market rate, and those future years are going to make up for that. That's kind of the first part. Once the first year cost is paid back over the next several years, can you expect those costs to drop to the original per rate? This is a great question. Okay, so I kind of skimmed through it. So the question is this, and I'm actually going to go back, guys, if you're okay with me doing this, because this is such a good question, to this picture here. I think you did a really nice job. Okay, this is basically the question, right? So the question says, hey, knowing that I'm going to have this step plan, you see how it kind of ends really high? The question is, once we're done with that ending high step, does it ever come back down? And the answer is, of course. So here's how that works. what you're agreeing to do with any cloud agreement is a term agreement. It's a, 3 to 5 years commonly the term, okay? And your pricing is fixed for that term. Also in some of the Q&A questions I set up for us as well, I talk about adding users. But what we would do, and we've already done this, so I can tell you from example, is what we're doing is we're saying, this is what your costs are going to look like for the next 5 years. But each user, if you add users, is actually $20 a user a month. What does that do? What that does is it guarantees you a price a day for your price adjustment in second term, okay? So when we're done trying to, like you said, kind of put our 12 gallons of cost into a year one bucket, right? At the end of that initial term, the deal is going to be reset if you choose to renew, right? Again, this is, this is not an evergreen kind of a scenario, right? This is, you are in control of this. If you choose to renew, all of your users will be adjusted back down to the, just make up, the $20 a user a month number. So yeah, great question. It's actually something I've seen a lot of other companies not do, right? They'll kind of leave you, they'll renew you at the high water mark. That's not our MO at all. We're just trying to help you make this transition and help you make that as smooth as possible. That was a phenomenal and really insightful question. Thank you. Do you see any other questions come in?
Not at this time,
okay.
Nope.
No worries. So guys, I'll also kind of take a few minutes here to kind of answer these next two questions. How do I add new users, which are not part of the initial project? This is very similar to what I was just talking about, and this is actually how that last question was answered. We are going to give you a price per user for the users who come on after the initial project. And all those users are going to come in with their own monthly amount. And those users are going to be, kind of a pay per use, just as you would expect. And they're going to have their own costs associated with them. But the organization, and this is kind of I want to phrase it like this, your organization should also expect that, because as growth happens, we tend to be willing to pay more. I mean, that's kind of how this cloud consumption works. It's also that same price per user that is setting the benchmark for how we're going to be able to reset your pricing after the initial term of doing this as well. So that's how we add new users. Do we have financial executives to speak with your financial executives? Absolutely. I run a team of folks who do exactly this for a living, right? We have technology engineers to talk to technologists. We have financial folks to go speak to finance folks. I think everyone kind of does have their own language, and this is probably most relevant when talking about the capital expense or operating expense or capital expenditure, I should say. So we would absolutely do that. So if you want to kind of run this through or get this vetted by your IT finance person or someone in your treasury or your CFO, we will gladly organize and arrange that as well too. And my last point, I tried making this in the beginning of the presentation, I want to kind of end with it as well, is that this works for all technologies. This works for our security offering. This works for our enterprise networking and SD-WAN solutions. This works for our data center, takeovers. This works for all of our infrastructure offerings. It obviously works for collaboration and customer experience. Right? I mean, this is not technology agnostic. This is ConvergeOne being the biggest and baddest in our market, who has the deep enough pockets, but also has a culture of execution and value that allows us to delay your payment while you get to experience our performance. So this works for everything we do. I think it's an incredibly market appropriate move. I'm really excited to be championing this. And if there are any other questions, I will gladly take.
All right. Well, thank you, Erik. Looks like there's no further questions at this time, but we will be sending out this the webinar replay to everyone on this in this webinar. So you'll have Erik's contact information. If you have any additional questions, you can reach out to him at any time. And also to learn more, you can go to convergeone.com/cloud. Again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. And thank you, Erik, and have a great day.
No, this is great, Doreen. Thank you so much. And doing a finance talk in less than 45 minutes is probably enjoyable for everyone as well. So thank you guys so much.